It's the Depression Vacation Podcast.
Shannon got to actually say the intro
did
this time.
it. Anyway, hello, welcome back. Hope you're all doing well.
Yeah,
you don't call, you don't write, but it's fine.
Mostly because we haven't set up any of the things where you can call or write.
Oh.
I mean, you could message our Facebook account, which is what our podcast enemy did.
Yeah.
But that's probably the only messages we ever got to the Facebook account, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
If I checked it, maybe, But
the funny thing about, having a page with a fully functioning inbox is that, you're usually using your own account and not using the account of your thing. Like, I'm linked to the VidJam account too, and I never see any of the messages in there. Like, usually it's Sam Miller takes care of them. I do see, like, we had to start... This is a really irritating aspect of page management that I never considered before I was like a VidJam admin, was there have been monstrous amounts of spam selling posts going on in the VidJam account, and they're always like the same vaguely pornographic looking women selling shoes or neck pillows. It was always one of the same two things, and they always had like the same weird AI generated write-up for it. So I got to the point where we just had to like require approval for posts. And guess what? I still get like, not as much anymore, but for a while I was getting like 5 or 6 notifications a day of these bots still trying to post these for sale. Oh, my husband loves these shoes that are just the most comfortable. It's always like, they're always buying things for their husband too, which was weird.
Huh. Yeah. I unfortunately, when Facebook first blew up, was 13, 14. And so, I'm not the only person in this boat, but I'm stuck on all these liked pages that I liked 20 years ago, or not 20, but a significant amount of time ago. And like, I don't care about them anymore, but I keep seeing their stuff, and I would go individually and unlike all of them, but that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I have the same sort of problem. The interesting thing is like a lot of the pages that I liked were not necessarily the official pages for like certain bands and stuff like that, because like, back then it was kind of the Wild West. I mean, these were not like bad actor groups were posing as them. It was just like fans who created like the Iron Maiden fan group, which weirdly has a lot of stuff about Egypt's revolution in it, for instance.
Right. Or like, so I guess the way I thought of it and the way other people thought of it too was that like all these like pages came up with like, oh, that feeling when something or whatever, or, just stuff that it's like, yes, I like this. So a lot of different like music and TV and stuff, but like you said, not official pages. So
yeah,
like there are some pages that pop up on my feed from time to time that have these absurdly long titles. And then sometimes I see that they change their title to something much shorter, and then they start posting like alt-right Nazi shit, and I'm like, fuck.
That's how they get you.
So then I gotta go. Those ones I do individually go in and unfollow, because I'm like, I don't want to see that shit.
Somewhat irritatingly too, like on that topic, like I'm weirdly okay with Facebook advertisements. Like I've gotten used to them. They pop up. They're a part of life. But lately they've been showing me lots of sponsored Facebook groups they think I should join. And for whatever reason, that just has really pissed me off. And like every single time I see one of them, I click in, hide all, don't show me this type of content again. And it's worked marginally. Like I don't see them nearly as much as I used to, but they still pop up. And I'm like, no, do not be a group or don't be an ad masquerading as a group here. But it's interesting you said like it blew up when you were 13, because me and my friends, like from college particularly, were in a weird group because we were in the very first like 15 schools that had Facebook. Like Hofstra for some reason was an early I'm not exactly sure why, but it was one of the like first 15 or maybe 30 schools that they put out on Facebook. So I actually have been a member of Facebook for 20 years, and it's crazy to think about like how much that platform changed over that period of time, because it was pretty uninteractive like in 2004 when I joined it, but it was still like the coolest thing ever, because I know you kind of grew up with social media, but like the ability to see pictures of your crush online and stuff like that and go scoping out people was not really available at all before then. Well, I made that sound creepy, but
no, but I mean that's exactly what I've used it for sure. Stalking people, absolutely.
Yeah.
You give a 15-year-old access to something like that, you're just asking for trouble. Now I am still, so there are groups that I'm still an admin for that I wish I wasn't an admin for anymore. And I've tried to remove myself as an admin, and I guess you can't do that. I don't know. I've tried so hard.
Yeah.
But I'm still an admin for a One Direction fangirl page, and I don't want to be anymore.
We had this actually come up because Jonathan Zeppa is also an admin for, I think he's not anymore, but he wanted to be removed as an admin specifically because these spam sales posts were just like clogging up his like notifications all the time. And it was kind of difficult, I think, for them to go in and remove, like it was not as intuitive as you think it would be.
Right. Or like, I'm like, okay, well, since I'm an admin, can I like delete the page or something? Because nobody uses it. One Direction isn't even a band anymore. So it's like, it's so frustrating. And every day when I open it up and I see that it's still there, I just cringe a little.
Yeah. You could try to leave the group, maybe. Maybe that would just automatically remove you as an admin.
I'll try that. I feel like I looked for something like that, but I don't recall.
Yeah. Social media has been, like, it's so interesting that you could make the case that that's the most impactful, like, thing that's happened to humanity in the last 20 years, really. Like, can you think of anything else that fundamentally changed the world? Like maybe smartphones, but smartphones also kind of go hand in hand with social networking.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely starting with the internet, but also like what you said is smartphones. They've come such a long way.
Yeah.
And really changed the game. And I'm really interested to see like some of these studies that are coming out because, we have people who are, becoming young adults now that have never lived in a world without smartphones or social media.
I know, it's crazy.
And yeah, so, there's a lot of studies out there about how that's going to impact these generations coming through. I was watching on YouTube. There's a YouTuber I watch. His name's Dr. Mike. I listen to everything he says.
Dr. Mike.
Because he's very attractive and a doctor. And I'm like, well, then he must know.
That's how they get you. That's the only influencers I subscribe to on Instagram are ones that got me that way too. Because Instagram knows my taste in women, apparently.
Yeah.
Like take note, scammers from across the Atlantic Ocean who keep sending me fake pornographic women to be friends with. Like, not my type whatsoever. Instagram knows its shit.
Yeah. So Dr. Mike talks about like he said something about how, back in the day we used to sit in long car drives and literally just like sit. But or like if we were waiting for something, like you literally just had to wait and you were left alone with your own thoughts. And we aren't left alone with our own thoughts anymore. We are constantly consuming content.
Yeah. That's when I was actually like very late to the smartphone game. I think, and I did it deliberately because I knew that as soon as I got a smartphone, my life is just going to change forever and there's literally like no going back. And I went about a whole year in Los Angeles without a smartphone. It actually cost me more money because rather than have a smartphone and have because I needed a GPS for my job for deliveries, I just like subscribed $5 a month to a GPS app on my flip phone. Wow, and this was 2011 and 2012. But as soon as I got a smartphone that summer, my roommate who had one for years was kind of like, yeah, be prepared to never be bored again. And that's kind of, there's something to that for what you're saying. Like, being bored, I think, is what motivates you to do things a lot of the time.
Right. Well, and I feel like I have a hard time being bored now. Like, I feel like I have to be doing something. So the concept of being bored is going to mean different things for these young adults and, and then also for, children. I remember a lot of times in my childhood being bored. Just a lot of times.
Oh, like you said, car trips were brutal.
I hated being in the car. I hated it. It was the worst. Like going over to my grandparents' house sometimes and just kind of sitting there while everybody else talked and stuff. And then like things like that where I didn't have anything else to entertain myself except from my own thoughts. We're not stuck with our thoughts anymore, and that's, maybe that'll be a scary thing.
There are some times where I deliberately do that. Like, I like to take, if I take any sort of walk, be it by myself or walking my parents' dog, I almost always, especially if I'm doing it by myself, I'll leave my phone inside because I usually take a walk around my building every day, and like, I think it's important to just have a walk where you like think to yourself for a while without being buzzed by social, like anything going on. It's interesting you brought this up too, because I was reading something on, I think it was either NPR or The Ringer this week, where they were talking about that there's a weird secondary mental health crisis going on connected to social media, but not the way that you think it is. It's something like a combination of social media, FOMO, and a good development in this is that like mental health issues are less stigmatized and people are more than willing to talk about them now. But it was a series of psychiatrists who were saying that a combination of those three things has made it that people are now way over posting about their mental health issues on social media, and it's actually made the problem worse for a lot of them and there's like two reasons for this. It's like, people who are reading it feel a weird and incredibly misplaced FOMO in somebody else talking about their mental health problems. And so it makes their own problems worse subconsciously. But also, if you're talking about your mental health problems so like way too much on Facebook, you get a lot of, like, because your friends love you and they give you a lot of support, and you get a lot of positive reinforcement attention for sharing like those kind of things on Facebook. It's the same thing as like, I don't really know a ton of people in my circle who post this anymore, but when people are like posting like, don't even want to talk about it, this is such a bad day. There's a term for it and I can't remember what it is. But like, essentially you're getting positive reinforcement to continue to post about mental health issues, which means you don't have a motivation to help make the mental health issues better. So in a weird, perverse way, even though it's a good thing that you're like opening up about your issues, and it shouldn't be a bad thing that you're expressing it like on platforms so your friends can understand, it really weirdly makes it worse in your brains and the brains of other people.
Well, fantastic. God damn it.
I flabbergasted Shannon. Well, you don't really post, like, when I say overpost, like, these are people who are like influencers who are like constantly talking about it all the time.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, listen, I know that, you know, consistent posting and things like that, like the influencer culture that we're in right now. You know, I have attempted to live such a lifestyle, but I don't know what it is. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to start posting things on social media. But I'll go weeks, months without posting something to like TikTok, for example. Because for a while, you know, when I was more serious about like stand-up, I was posting my material on TikTok, like trying to get...
Yeah, I used to see it like repost on Instagram from from TikTok a lot.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, this is like what I want to do as a stand-up comedian to get my material out there. But then I don't know, I always end up being like lazy, I guess, and just not doing it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I generally try to limit myself to one post a day, absolute maximum, unless something incredibly notable is happening, which never happens to me.
I don't even think I post every day.
Oh, I don't
to be
either.
honest. Like I used to, and I'm like looking back, you know, Facebook memories can go shit bricks, because I swear to God, I'm reminded of so many cringy things that I did 15 years ago that I don't want to think about.
Yeah, it's weird. A lot of the jokes that that pop up in my Facebook memories, I still think are kind of my brand of jokes, and like were very funny to me at the time. But for whatever reason, just every time they pop up, they are like mildly cringy. Just because I feel like I think I want to believe my humor has evolved over the time, but in reality, I'm just like faced with a joke I made that I don't like anymore. Like years later, like my child is Satan.
Yeah.
But the influencer stuff is interesting too, because I may have mentioned before on the podcast, one of my favorite things to do if I'm having a bad day is to just watch both of the Fyre Festival documentaries, because it's a perfect mix of like, it was a huge disaster, mostly rich people were impacted, and nobody got hurt. So it's a fun, ridiculous like era of influencer everything, and it makes me feel like no matter how bad my day is, I could never mess up something as bad as the Fyre Festival. But it's interesting because the second one focuses more on influencer culture and like how it got to that point, and how influencer culture kind of enabled the worst aspects of Fyre Festival to go through unchecked. And at this point, these documentaries are 6 years old, and all of this is still relevant, if not even more relevant these days.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, influencer culture, or just the idea of influencers in general, It's kind of a little sad when you think about it. Because, I mean, it's all based around like consumerism. But, you know, I recently, or this was in the past year, like I used to have a friend who was an influencer and had a pretty significant following and, you know, like thousands of followers. And being their friend was very difficult because honestly, like the way that I see influencers and I, you know, don't think this is this is obviously a generalization. Not every single one of them is like this, but it's a very easy thing for narcissists to get into. And like there was a point where I didn't feel like their friend. I felt like their prop. And, you know, it's kind of, I feel like it takes the humanism out of people sometimes.
This is also why, like one of a layer of reasons I don't like having candid photos or videos taken of me right now is because I do occasionally have people, and I love all my friends. Like, you wouldn't be my friends, or I wouldn't be friends with you if I didn't love you, and this like annoyed me a terrible amount. But occasionally, like, I do just see a lot of friends taking videos of things that like were, I don't know, didn't need to be a story on Instagram or something like that, but kind of is, you know, and like you said, it's just really not that necessary. I like to live in the moment a little bit more. And interestingly enough, it was a Facebook post that made me think about this by a friend of mine who was like making fun of people like 10 years ago who were just like filming fireworks with their phones on the 4th of July. And his exact words were like, nobody's ever going to want to see your video of this. Just live in the moment. And I was like, yes, that is exactly the thing. So I usually try to live in the moment with certain things. And the other reason, like, I wouldn't want to be an influencer too, which this is like what you were talking about with the narcissism. They mentioned in the documentary, one of the people who's talking about influencers says in a sort of roundabout way that influencers are actually kind of brave people in a weird way because they're literally just putting their entire lives out there for you to see. Their whole life is their brand. And so, like, if you really are an influencer, like, there's no moment in your life where you're not taking some sort of snippet of video for TikTok or Instagram. And, like, I don't know. I kind of like my life in a lot of ways, and I don't want to share it with the entire world. So, like, little snippets here and there are fine, but yeah.
I mean, everything's good in moderation. And so, I mean, there are certain kind of unwritten rules I have for myself as to like what I share on social media or even, you know, when I'm going to pull out my phone, because in a lot of those situations, like, for example, you know, I'm going to a concert next month and I don't plan to have my phone out other than to like grab a picture of me and my friend at the concert. But I'm not going to like video the concert because like that quality is not nearly going to be as good as me just watching the concert. And, you know, so things like that where, like, if I am at a place that's going to be heavily photographed and videoed, then I don't myself take the photos and video because there's going to be plenty of it without me adding to the mix.
Funny story about that. Like, I like to watch concert, like, songs on YouTube because I like the live version of a lot of them. And one of the most traveled Titus Andronicus concerts was actually a show I went to at the El Rey in 2013, and most of the show is online, which I listen to and watch a lot, and it was a guy who was literally right behind me because I can tell my hair and the particular shirt I was wearing, which was one of like 3. I only really ever have 3 shirts in rotation. And so every time I watch that, I'm like, okay, I was right there the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's weird because it has millions of views, and I'm kind of like, it's sort of weird that I'm just an extra in this video. I didn't consent to this, but it's okay because you know, it's a good video. So
yeah, I definitely like to grab a picture of like me and who I'm with at an event or like
it's a keepsake. I'm a mentor.
Yeah, and I generally too. I'm not a photographer by any means, but there are some things that I'll look at it and I'll be like, wow, that's really beautiful. I wonder if I can capture that to share with other people. And so I'll pull out my phone. Like when I went to Europe, that's what I did. I took pictures that I thought were really pretty and that people might like to see. But I didn't capture like every single thing I did when I was in Europe.
Well, those are nice things to keep too, because my mom, from all the time she spent in Europe, has like a lot of really nice photos of like her sister, and people that she went with there. And see, those are nice like little snapshots and mementos, but you don't need to be vlogging the entire time, I think, which is the deal with influencer culture. Have you ever watched Party Down, out of curiosity?
No.
If you haven't seen it, fantastic show. It started in 2006 to 2000, maybe 10, and they only did 2 seasons of it. And it was about like a lot of struggling actors and creatives trying to make it in Hollywood, but they all end up working for this catering company instead. And then they took like 10 years off and they came back, and it didn't miss a beat. But one of the interesting like things is a younger character who joined the show. He's not interested in being an actor. He wants to be a social media influencer. And that's his whole game. And it was really interesting to see, like, everybody is kind of like, oh, the bar has been lowered at this point where you're not even trying to do something for art. You're just trying to literally be a walking commercial, which made it really funny because he ends up taking a dancing video of himself falling down an escalator by mistake. And then by the end of the series, he's the falling downstairs guy. And so the trap of social media influencing is, if that's what people know you for, he needs to continue to think of more creative ways to fall down things.
Yeah. No, and yeah, I just don't think that's the kind of lifestyle for me. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of content creators on TikTok that I really enjoy, and I think there is a difference between like being an influencer and like being a content creator.
Yeah.
You know, like the influencers that are like trying to get you to buy something, or like that are like trying to exploit certain things, I guess, is what I'm getting at, like trying to exploit some sort of hardship that somebody else has, or just something like that. Like the ones that go and I don't know, like trying to think of. Well,
I can think of one prominent like example. This was Marjorie Taylor Greene, because before she became a congresswoman, she actually had made sort of a cottage industry over like conservative influencing. But very specifically, she like hounded the Parkland kids, like David Hogg, relentlessly, which was like, you know, in any other era of American politics, it would be sickening. But now it's par for the course for some people at this point. And like, I've only seen snippets of it like here and there, like on news programs where they're talking about her. But I was kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, this guy survived a shooting as a child. I watched his friends get killed. And you're really going to like pound him over what should be common sense legislation. Yeah, I definitely like, there is a lot, the content creators that I enjoy the most on TikTok are like the cosplayers, like, because I love to see their art and what they're, you know, putting together. There are a lot of really great comedians on TikTok that aren't stand-up comedians, they just do bits, or even stand-up comedians that do bits also on TikTok, and I very much enjoy their content. And I think there is a lot to be said for being able to share that with a lot of people, and getting to see that, I think, is really nice. But again, everything in moderation, and like with the best of intentions too. It is definitely a platform that can be used for good. Like, I don't know what his name is, but there's the guy who has sort of like the mustache, and I think I've seen you post his videos, but he's usually like the angry employee or something like that. I can't remember what his name is, but he has broken through a little bit too, because he got cast in a small role in Cocaine Bear, and then like he's been getting smaller roles because his videos are actually like really hilarious. Like just the minutia of work culture in general. Yes, I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Do you remember what his name is? I don't know his name. I'm sorry, but you just know him as angry employee guy. Yeah. No, but I very much like his content, and it's nice to see some of these stars like get these breakout kind of, or these creators get a little bit of recognition for what they do. I think is very fun. And I think a lot of people do use it for good. So, for example, there's this creator that I enjoy, and I don't know his name, but probably easy to find. But I just know him as like the red flag guy. And what happens is he will stitch or duet other people's videos of their partner doing something, and he'll either like
he's in a field or something, and he comes out with his giant red flag or a giant green flag, and he'll be like, ah!
That sounds funny.
Yeah, he makes me laugh, and like I think it also does a great job of like raising awareness, because like when he pulls out the red flags, it's kind of nice to see this man being like, hey, that's toxic behavior.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of wholesome in a way, too. So I think I enjoy TikTok for a lot of those reasons. The influencers, I skip through a lot of bullshit on TikTok. Like, I honestly probably scroll through more than I actually watch. But I find a lot of cool stuff on there.
Yeah, it can be. Did you ever... I was never really that big into this platform, but did you ever browse Vine a lot when that was a
yes.
thing? Because a lot of people have said TikTok is essentially like it's just become Vine, but on a bigger level. And my friend Harry actually used to show me, because the Red versus Blue guys actually had a very prominent Vine channel. It was like one of the top channels on the platform. And the videos he'd show me would be hilarious. Like they would all be, 7 seconds long?
Yeah.
But they fit a lot of fantastic just jokes and editing into 7 seconds. And I kind of was hoping TikTok would be mostly that when...
That short form, yeah.
Yeah, because short form stuff can be very fun.
And it started that way. And I did like when Vine came out, I did have an appreciation for like... You only have so much time to get your point across and to make someone laugh. And I think that's fun and challenging. And I like to challenge myself and to watch what other people do when certain restrictions, or certain limitations that they have, what they can still put out there. So I really enjoy kind of the short form. Now TikTok is to the point where I think you can do like 3-minute long videos now.
Too long.
Yeah, it's a little too long.
Go Facebook Live.
Usually,
if you're gonna do that.
If it lasts longer than a minute, I'm already scrolling. I'm out of there.
Yeah, actually, Instagram used to only be like their stories used to be 10 seconds long regardless, and they changed something like in the last couple of years too, where your stories could be a lot longer on Instagram as well. Because it used to be also, if you had to post a video that was longer than a minute, it had to go to Reels, which then became like a whole different monster. So if I was ever posting video, I had to make it a minute or under on there, which was a fun... Sometimes limitations make things better. Like, was Twitter better when you could only use 140 characters? I don't know. I never Twittered.
I mean, I did Twitter, but I didn't do much that was just like... My Twitter experience was mostly like... Anything I posted to Facebook just automatically posted to Twitter.
That's my Instagram and Facebook relationship.
And I don't even know. Technically, I mean, I have a Twitter, but I don't know if it still exists because it's X now. I don't know.
I think they may have purged some accounts on Twitter.
Well, they probably did.
I'm not 100% sure about. Like Twitter is such a clusterfuck of. It's calmed down a little bit now, but there's still like. There's going to be some fascinating documentaries about the unraveling of Elon Musk. When all is said and done. Because I feel less confident about this now, but I still think that Twitter is not going to exist in a couple of years. Because...
Well, technically it doesn't exist now.
Yeah, well, everybody refers to it as Twitter X now.
Or X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah.
You never hear just X anymore. It's always X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, this X thing isn't quite working, Elon. And... just another hugely bad decision in a series of bafflingly huge bad decisions, like rebranding a platform and changing the name of a platform that already was completely ubiquitous throughout the entire world. Like everybody knew what Twitter was, and now like you still have to refer to it as Twitter, formerly X, just so people will know what the fuck it is. And I mean, when you're that wealthy, you can get away with pretty much anything, which I think is what's making him go crazy.
Yeah, no. Well, and I read something online earlier this week that was pretty spot on. And, we're just seeing what happens when, PR is not like censoring what these billionaires are saying.
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought the John Oliver segment that he did last year to close out the show on Elon Musk was interesting because...
I did see that, yeah.
At this point, like, Musk has been, like, a weirdo neo-fascist for a couple of years now. And it's weird to remember, like, he was very fondly thought of for the longest time. And John Oliver did a pretty, like, measured take, being like, yes, at this point, like, he was actually, like, somebody who was innovative, would pour a lot of money into interesting innovations, made some good decisions, and then just like somehow over the last couple of years of just like constantly
off the rails.
Yeah, like basically like he has an addiction to Twitter is what a lot of former aides have said, and all the people that he talks to are just like the world's largest echo chamber, which is why he's utterly surprised when he goes on national TV and tells advertisers to go fuck themselves, because his entire like echo chamber of weird Musk bros think it's hilarious, and then he is so confused when he goes out into the real world and people don't find any of that humorous.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for some of these people when I really think about it. And you know what? In a way, that it's like if I can feel bad for Elon Musk, I must be a good person.
Yeah, I think that like even bad people you can feel empathy and sympathy for. Like there are a lot of things about Donald Trump's life that I feel a lot of empathy for him because especially like watching the documentary about like his life and upbringing. He is a true monster at this point and a very bad man. But he was at one point just a child teenager who was being raised by an equally bad man who like was very abusive, mean, and just like a monster himself. And like that's why like Trump's brother drank himself to death. I don't know if you'd heard that. His older brother, and that's why Donald Trump is completely like straight edge. Like he doesn't do drugs, he doesn't drink. It's because he saw his brother like because he was just abused so badly by his dad, he just couldn't take it, and so he drank himself essentially to death like very early, like in his 30s. Wow. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's brother did the same thing too, because their dad. And it's interesting to show like what the character between the two of them is. And I think they are comparable because Arnold was a politician, Republican at one point too. But like Arnold's brother also, he died in a drunk driving accident, but he was also drinking himself to death because he said that his brother was a more sensitive person and the abuse that his dad leveled at him, he just couldn't take. But with Arnold, he still, and that's why I think he's kind of a miracle, is that he still maintained like his wackiness, his goofiness, his sense of humor, and he just became a very successful person, almost despite his dad. But weirdly enough, never, unlike Trump, he never seems to have lost his humanity in the process, which this is kind of what I tell people all the time nowadays. And I am stealing this from my therapist. But my therapist told me at one point that the only thing that you can ever truly maintain, and is up to you to maintain regardless of the circumstances, is your goodness. If you can rationalize supporting a bad person for protection or for like, oh, I need this right now, and so we have to break the rules. But at the end of the day, your goodness is the only thing you're in control of, and you lose a little bit of it every time you do something wrong for what you perceive to be the right reasons. So that's why I tell people all the time, it's like, don't lose your goodness over Donald Trump. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, I think it, I see exactly what you're saying. And, we are, it's like they say in Hamilton, I am the one thing in life I can control. And, like that.
I am the one thing in my life I can't. Now that whole song is playing in my head now.
Yeah, no, I love that song.
I'm going to wait for it.
But that's the thing is like, you can choose what kind of impact you have in the world. And it's, I see that as like a responsibility that every person has, to be able to keep your goodness and to do the right thing. And of course, not everybody does that, but, it can be very easy to take the easy way out and just be angry and to be a dick about it. And, so I feel bad when goodness kind of dies, like when I see a person, get tired of just putting up with all the evil in the world, that they become evil themselves. Like it's heartbreaking.
There's a interesting, like something I just thought of because I read this morning. You're familiar with that. There was a shooting at the Kansas City Super Bowl parade, which looks like it was like a dispute between two juveniles, and then just like sprayed fire and shot 23 people. Mike Florio, who's my favorite football columnist to read, he's not apolitical, but like when things like this pop up, he is not afraid to call bullshit on like the uniquely American problem of mass shootings, as he called it, which it is. And one of the things he said in an article this morning when he was talking about it was like, our elected officials aren't going to do anything. We have to sort of get the voters to think about it themselves. And he mentioned that this issue, whenever he brings it up in football columns, because a lot of football people are second-right enthusiasts, to put it lightly. And he says they get very angry. And his response nowadays is just to ask them, it's why are you so angry about this? Let's get to the root of why you feel so strongly that we should have AR-15s available for everybody. And so that was his advice in the column this morning, was just if you have a family or loved one who's really stumping for these particular things, ask them why they're so mad about it and just try to talk it to the root of the problem, essentially. In fact, I did that with my dad a couple of weeks ago because he was he was kind of railing against DEI and things in general, as somebody akin to lots of conservative radio would do. But we started rather than just be oh, you're full of shit, which I also do from time to time.
Yeah.
We were just sort of talking about I was more than anything, it insulates just a billionaire from putting their shitty children or shitty uncle or shitty nephew who has no experience and doesn't deserve a job into a high-paying job. And my dad sort of went back, is yeah, that happened to my dad because he was, back when they discriminated against Catholics, he was a Catholic guy in an all-Protestant neighborhood and work community and was passed up promotions a lot of times for that reason. And I was well, Dad, this is kind of what DEI is trying to do, except, your dad probably could have, even though it would have been against his morals to do it, he could have pretended he wasn't Catholic. But if you're a black or brown person, you can't really pretend that you're not that. And so DEI is kind of a way to try to make sure the playing field is level for these people. He still is not in favor of it, but having that discussion and the sort of why are you angry about this led to a much more fruitful talk than usual. So
yeah, I think that's important because I think what we forget is we get into these arguments and debates and we forget that honestly at the end of the day, you and me arguing about it isn't going to do anything. It's not going to make, it's not you losing an argument to me is it's I'll run to the White House and be all right, Joe, I got it. I got Hal to bend and break and now it's time. It's time for us to rise. Yeah. It really does nothing. So it's really about what can you accomplish during that conversation, and if you can accomplish getting to know that person a little bit better, or to find some understanding, I think that's fruitful. But I don't think you're really going to solve the world's problems by going back and forth. You know?
And I'm an emotional human being like anybody, so I'm not always. In fact, most of the time, I'm not level-headed while talking about some of these things. But I did have an argument with a coworker yesterday about exactly this, because it came out that Trump has to pay $370 million in civil liabilities now. And her clapback was oh yeah, and next let's get our crooked president in there too. He'll owe twice as much. And my response, which was kind of angry at this, or irritated / angry, was okay, what evidence are you basing this on exactly?
Make sense.
Yeah. And she's oh, he's so crooked. Everybody knows it. She's also very insulated by Fox News, too. And so it's kind of kept going back and forth. I'm again, you can say anything you want to, but there's no evidence to what you're saying. Trump had a very, lengthy... And that's kind of the funny thing about Trump, too, is if he was just smarter about things, nobody ever would catch him with this stuff. But he just does not give a fuck at the end of the day and just doesn't think people will catch him. But I was kind of with any elected official, there's probably a pretty strong chance they might be crooked or something.
Yeah.
But unless you have proof of that, you can't go leveling that out. And essentially, as I kept asking more questions about what are you basing this on, eventually the response just became, that's the way I feel. And that's the end of it, basically,
right.
Because you take it on essentially an act of faith that the political people you're listening to are telling you the truth, even though there is no particular evidence in this case. So a lot of times what these arguments do boil down to is that's just what I think and I'm never going to change because I feel that way.
Which I think is sad.
Yeah.
I tend to I tend to call people out when they're not willing to change their stance on something when, and I've done this to my dad actually. I've called him out on some things, and my dad and I are honestly, we don't have a lot that we don't agree on.
I was going to say, you and your
politics.
dad seem to be kind of bros.
Oh,
so.
yeah. We have pretty much the same politics, pretty much the same religious ideology. But he won't admit it, but there are things that, beliefs that he has that are I used to believe the same way, and then I was like, well, let's really talk about this though. Like, let's think about this rationally.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll stick with his guns, and I'll be like, all right. And it's funny, you know. I'm like, okay, well, but it's not lost on me that you're pretty much doing the same thing that you get mad at other people for doing. But you know, that's okay.
Yeah, it is hard sometimes because we have a lot of blind spots, I think, to how we operate. And sometimes you just don't realize that you're, you know, calling people out for the same behavior. I mean, I've been guilty of this so many times. I'd like to think I'm less guilty of it now, but used to be quite guilty about it. Yeah, it's you know. Also, I think your dad, too, like, this, we've talked about this before, but just the way men have been raised in previous generations, and hopefully it's changing a little bit now. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this the other day because, like, I don't know, like a lot of the toxic traits that men are raised with kind of hamstrung me for a long time. And like one of the big ones was like my dad used to comment that certain people I was dating weren't good looking enough for me and stuff like that, because like a relationship for him is a status symbol. Like, oh, the hotter somebody is, the more that you are as a person. And thankfully, that's a mindset that I've finally dropped after bad decades of insulation on that idea. But you know, it can be, sometimes it's really hard to break the things that you've been like raised with. And the older you get, I think the harder it becomes as well.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So yeah, this is where I try to cut my dad a little bit of slack sometimes too. It's just like at this point in life, like he's not going to change for anybody. And why would he? Because it's just going to cause him mental anguish to realize that all of his beliefs are bullshit when he only has maybe a decade left to live anyway. So like, yeah. I'm not going to lie, honestly, like a ton of probably my depression and anxiety comes from the realization that everything I was raised with, like the first 30 years of my life, was absolute bullshit. And like, there's a lot of baggage to unpack with that, a lot of depression, and mostly a lot of just like, I'm just kind of mad and sad that I wasted a lot of years of my life for things that just made me unhappy, isolated me from people, and then ultimately hamstrung my life. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like I've done a lot of things recently in my life to kind of like make myself happier, in the sense that like I've always been kind of argumentative, and so like if I hear like at work sometimes, you know, they'll talk about, I don't know, like Taylor Swift and
another weird figure for conspiracy theories these days. That happened fast.
Well, and so some lady was talking about like how she was so tired of the NFL giving a shit about Taylor Swift, and I like for a second like I had this moment where, because I wasn't involved in the conversation, I was just sitting in my office, and probably a couple years ago, I probably would have jumped in and talked about like, or like argued with her. And in this case, I just kind of let her go and let her, you know, say what she wanted to say. And I didn't involve myself in the conversation or anything like that. And I'm doing a lot of that nowadays, of just like, you know, just keeping to myself for the benefit of not having to use the amount of energy needed to argue with other people.
See, there's two sides of that argument, and I agree with you, because there's a lot of times where I just don't want to engage, and I'm just going to be like, I just work here or something like that. But also, like, I feel like it's important to push back at least regularly to show people that, because I think when somebody like gets on a soapbox, especially in your office, and is like, blah, 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 blah about something, what they're really looking for is confirmation in their own ideology. And they will take people's silence as like, yeah, everybody agrees with me. So even just a little pushback to be like, no, this is not how people feel, or at least this is not how I feel, discourages some of the soapboxery, or, you know, in some cases encourages you to try to like research your opinion more and like think, because honestly, like I ask lots of questions when I feel like fighting with somebody about something, and it's not usually very hard. Like a lot of the people who are the loudest are the ones who actually haven't researched or thought about their opinions that much. So it's kind of like 20 questions. How many questions does it take to get somebody's argument to completely fall apart? It's usually 2 or 3. So, and then we get to the, well, I just feel that way for no reason.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
Yeah. One of my biggest things has just been like, knowing when it's important to speak up and knowing when I don't have to.
Yeah, you can't fight every battle.
Right,
so
exactly.
You can't remove yourself as an admin for every Facebook page.
But though I wish I could.
We should make that into a t-shirt too, or a phrase from now on.
Yep.
When you remove yourself from the situation, I'm removing myself as an admin for this page. Have a nice day.
Nice. I like that.
Well, you did mention, like, when you were talking about your dad and, like, religious beliefs, whenever I think about that, I always think of John Delancey because of your story with him. And I did start, like, have you watched Picard at all?
I've seen the first episode or two, so I did start it, but I'm not caught up.
Yeah, I heard it was a hot garbage show from a bunch of people, and a lot of people who were, like, big Next Generation fans. So I avoided it for a long time. But actually, Sam Melville, of all people, like, we were having breakfast and talking, and she was also a big Next Generation fan, and somebody who, like, she has never given me a bad recommendation on anything, and she really enjoyed Picard, so I started watching it. And the first season was somewhat interesting. Like, it was a long story that didn't need to be a 10-episode arc for a season, so it wasn't that interesting, but it was still a pretty good show. And now I started season 2 last night, and it's the season where Q returns. So I see old John Delancey, like, still hamming it up as Q on screen, and he's still. It's so funny because, like, the roles I've seen him in since Star Trek ended have been more like Breaking Bad, where he's sort of a reserved, like, grieving father or something where he's not that bombastic. And it's so fun to see old John Delancey just, like, you know, chewing the scenery as everybody's favorite alien god mischief maker.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that season. So
yeah, the first one's kind of a slog. I've heard the third season. I was reading articles about how, like, that was the biggest, like, because everybody seems to love the third season of Picard, including people who thought the first two were garbage. And they said it was the biggest turnaround they'd ever seen in a TV show. I think mostly because they finally got, like, a lot of Picard tried to avoid fan service wherever possible. Like, Riker shows up for a very brief amount of time in the first season, but it's not much more than a glorified cameo. And I don't know how much you've seen, but, like, 7 of 9 is a character and Raffi, and there's a couple of characters that, like, are part of the Picard universe, but for the most part they really tried to just do their own characters, which, if you're doing a legacy sequel to a very beloved piece of fiction, like, just give us all those characters going in space and having adventures again. And from what I've heard, the third season is exactly that. Like, they just get all the old gang back together and do stuff, which is probably what people wanted to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Where
are we at?
No, we're like 47 minutes. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about today? I hate it when people say that on podcasts. But
no, that's okay. A little sad news. We put in a bid on a house this week and we got outbid again. So I was a little sad. So anyway, everybody just needs to stop buying my houses.
Yeah, I was reading an article on NPR this morning where they were talking about there are a lot of municipalities, cities, and areas that are actually rezoning spaces that were supposed to be just commercial into residential commercial now because there is a housing crisis in a lot of places where people can't afford to buy them. I actually thought of you because when I was going for my run yesterday, there's a house in my neighborhood, like right down the street from me, that's for sale. And I was like, oh, I should tell Shannon about this. But then I was like, oh no, she probably wants to live closer to work or something like that.
Yeah, that was and I think I know the house that you're talking about because I do check Harrisburg listings from time to time. And they are, like, just over that cutoff for, like, the drive time that I'm looking for work.
That's fair.
So, but yeah, it's been a little bit it was very frustrating. And I mean, we got outbid, and it was a cash offer, and they waived inspections.
Yeah.
So it's a nightmare out there.
Yeah, I am so thankful that I didn't have to waive the inspection for, like, I weirdly hit the lottery with mine, like, no competing offers because I got to before it went on the market. Accepted PFHA, so not only did I get an inspection, but it was required, and the inspection was pretty good. Like, they just had 2 or 3 things that the homeowner had to take care of, including installing a railing for, like, the downstairs, which was nice. So the inspection was good, and, like, it really is a hard time to buy a house, Shannon.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to you.
Yep. Well, sorry. I'm tired.
Same.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. But other than that, things are going well. Ryan is in rehearsals for Hello Dolly for
Nice.
the East Pennsboro High School. So that's
Our
fun.
favorite accompanist, Ryan.
Yes. And I just had my first guitar lesson this week. So.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about the guitar lesson.
Well, it went really well. I remember a lot, or I know a lot more about guitar than I thought I did, which is kind of nice.
That's probably helpful.
Yeah.
Have you learned to read tab yet?
No. And I don't know if I will. But
You
see.
will.
We shall see.
Some tabs look super complicated, but really tab is not like horribly complicated as things go.
Yeah.
But yeah, you and Ryan have to start your mystery solving band.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, with the piano, the guitar, and the big band solving mysteries.
Yep.
With the 4 cats.
I would watch that show.
We could call it Shrine. No. Shrine, stop me. Yeah. Please stop me.
What do you have going on?
So there was one interesting thing that's been going on like the last week is as a lot of people around me know, I've been having some health problems the last like year and a half to 2 years that I've been trying with little to no success to figure out. And actually, I had something that really helped me a lot this last week was I was reading an article, as always, about like how keto diets have helped people with different like they were saying keto actually helps treat depression, weirdly enough, in a like small sample study that they had done because it's been used for like almost a century to fight epilepsy, actually, which I didn't know, because like cutting down on carbs has helped epileptics like not have seizures. And so I kind of was like, medication is working a little bit, but not really that great. I still feel low energy. I still like am way overweight. Let me just see if like maybe this will help out. And I asked because I know Karen is like a huge keto enthusiast. Enthusiast might be the wrong word, but so I was talking to her about it in general, and she kind of gave me like the bylines, and she told me too to like inspect your food to make sure like it's because carbs sneak up in foods you wouldn't expect. Like for instance, the Greek yogurt I like to eat is pretty carb heavy, even though it doesn't really have sugar. Pea soup also, and peas in general. A lot of vegetables are super starchy that you wouldn't think because they're veggies. But long story short, also because Lauren has said she's going to break up with me if I ever talk to her about my keto diet, is that like I've been on it for like a little bit more than a week. It really was just little changes, and the energy I've been having is like through the roof. Like when we're done here today, I'm going to go to the gym, which I haven't been to the gym in a while.
Nice.
Things are just feeling a lot better.
Good.
Even though I've only exercised twice this week, I'm losing weight on this diet, and I really didn't have to change very much. Like, you just have to shop for foods that are less starchy. Like, I've been using Aldi's keto bread in lieu of like the old bread I used to use, and yeah, it's given me a glimmer of hope, Shannon.
I'm proud. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It would be nice to have my life back in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there have been times, like I was actually like, I'm still thinking about this, but I was debating at one point just like cutting off everything I was doing outside of work, like all improv, stand-up, and movie stuff for like a month or two just to try to get my health issues in order because like nothing seems to be working that well. So I don't know if I have to do that anymore though. So really,
we'll
podcast will never end though.
Hooray!
Because this is the easiest thing in the world to just do once a week-ish.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah, which we're at 61 episodes of
Hooray!
Depression Vacation at this point, by the way, guys. Like,
yeah.
How did we do it? I didn't think we were going to stick with it this long. Actually, yes, I did.
I don't know how we did it. The secret to success, guys, is just making a schedule work. That's apparently.
Oh, my God. That's the filmmaker's credo, just making your schedule work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to have some interesting guests, too, in the next couple of weeks, months. I'm still talking to her about this, but Suji would like to come back on with her producing partner and like film BFF, Greg Papa. I don't know if have you ever met Greg?
No, I haven't met Greg.
Actually, have you met Suji outside of our podcast? Did you ever work with her on?
No, I haven't gotten to work with her yet.
That's weird because
like
she was in so many things I did. So it's weird that you never had any crossover there. But yeah, they're going to be back on to talk about their movie Cold in the near future because that's like gearing up for a big press thing and everything. And
cool.
She's a very involved lady, and Ben Chadwell has also expressed interest in being on sometime soon because Ben has a lot of things he wants to talk about with regards to his journey, with mental health issues and things like that.
Nice.
And also, I was talking to my friend Matt Miller. Have you ever met Matt either? Probably not.
I don't know.
Matt is a composer. He did the music for Barnaby and for a bunch of other vid jams that we've done, but you probably never met him.
I feel like maybe I met him at a thing, but
Possibly.
didn't I meet him? Wasn't he at your birthday thing?
No.
Or is that somebody else?
No, that was probably Jonathan Zeppa.
Oh, it was Jonathan Zeppa, yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Zeppa, my absolute favorite, my favorite optimist in the entire world. Every time I talk with him, I feel like I'm lighter and I'm happier and I want to go out and do things.
We all need someone like that in our lives.
Yeah, the interesting thing about him, which it was something I read a while back on optimism, was like there's a difference between like pragmatic optimism and delusional optimism. And the delusional optimists are kind of like the people who think everything is always going to go okay and then get super depressed when it doesn't. But then like I forget who it was, but the thing I was reading was they were talking about an interview that they had read about like POWs during Vietnam. And the guys that had survived had said something like, yeah, the guys who kept telling themselves, oh, we're going to be home at Christmas, they're going to rescue us and it's going to be okay, were the ones who didn't last because they were delusionally optimistic and like it was too much when their optimism was shattered. But the guys that made it out, including the one they were interviewing, were kind of like, okay, this is going to be really hard, but we can make it through it and we can actually live and get out of this if we do this, if we do that, and if we do this. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how Jonathan is always. Like, if I come to him with a problem or like a filmmaking or construction piece of advice, he's like, okay, this is going to be hard, but this is how I would do this in this case. And I really appreciate the optimism that comes with an instruction booklet, essentially.
Yeah. That's the kind of optimism that I like to think that I have.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I can be delusional sometimes, too. I'm kind of...
for sure.
If, have you ever taken a test about, like, what tarot character you would be?
Nope.
I have, because I've dated many people who are into tarot readings. And I am the Fool, apparently, which the Fool is not interestingly enough, it is not it's not an insult in the way of the tarot. What it just means is that you're carefree. You don't really think about, like, what bad things might happen to you. And this actually doesn't sound like me at all, but depending on the day, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But do you have anything coming up in your life? Any shows or things you're doing?
No.
Any being Cousin It in the Addams Family musical too?
No, not this time. No, yeah, we don't have much else going on other than, Ryan's got some things coming up with Hello Dolly. We're going to go see Sweeney Todd at Open Stage.
Yes, we're going to see that too.
Yeah, so excited to see that. I've mostly just been writing, and Ryan and I are writing some music together right now, so we might release that soon. So, yeah.
Is it about cats?
No, this one's not about cats, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of mindfulness, and so just looking to get back into some of the things that I haven't gotten the chance to do over the last couple of years. So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to, among other things, like getting back into biking this year too. Like once it gets warm enough, because I don't think I really rode my bike much at all last year. Which is something I used to do so much, and then that's one of the things I loved doing that I lost touch with when I lost energy to do stuff. So that's kind of how I'm feeling, like looking forward for warmer weather, and because this last week of weather was so ridiculous.
Horrible. Like, I'm so tired of this shit.
So many, like the snow was so heavy too, a lot of trees fell down in my neighborhood.
Oof.
Like a huge section of a trunk fell down off of one of my trees, but thankfully the city of Harrisburg came with a giant claw machine attached to a truck and took it. But an entire like big tree fell down in my parents' yard, and then all over the place in my neighborhood in general. So yeah, Mother Nature, just like get your shit together.
Yeah, I think so. The rodent told me that it would be spring, so I don't know what fucking happened.
Ah, that fucking rodent.
Yeah. Anyhow.
But anyway, this has been fun, everyone. Thank you for listening to us.
Yes, thank you. We hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll be back to see you again soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.